Galvin at the line, kicks, they're in! Justin Olam off the back of a Lachlan Galvin grubber. The West Tigers have first points, and it's a shootout between a couple of teenagers. Sezer on the wraparound from Safer, goes over the top, Olam for the corner, the Tigers are in! Now Bolla, Sezer goes past Bateman, here's Galvin showing it, he beats Talangi, runs to Gutherson, gives it to Buller, it's a race for the line, Jerome Buller! He scores off the back of a piece of brilliance by Lachlan Galvin. Papali'i says get out of the way. Sezer from right in front. Got it. Sezer's the moment. He kicks the field goal that puts the Tigers in front.
It's West Tigers Podcast, episode number 313, and starting to make a habit of post-victory editions of the West Tigers Podcast, recording on a Monday night, and in the hours after that very memorable 17-16 win over Parramatta. Eddie, Declan and Gary are on the pod. Steve is not here. Steve's in Sydney at last reports, dancing on a table at West Ashfield with his shirt off, with his jersey off, waving it around above his head, saying, we're on our way to the semi-finals. Some of the one words from the West Tigers podcast forum, the last Ronan, he said resilience, Campo, courageous, Peter A, belief, Canberra Tiger heart, Frullins. I really liked Frullins' contribution. Sucked in Para. I think that's a really good Frullins. Nothing better than beating Parramatta. Southern Tiger, justice. And that was in regards to Justice the ridiculous penalty at the end of the game. Eastern Magpie, tenacity. And Mike, his one word was Galvin the golden child. From Facebook, Linda, her one word was Benji. Benjamin was repeat. In other words, we did it. We repeated last week's performance. Let's repeat it again next week. Nathan was defense. Lynn was magnificent. Ryan, the F word, and then awesome, which is pretty good. William also said awesome. Tony said gritty. Anthony said wow. Frank used the last Ronan's term resilience. Nathan said exciting, etc., etc. I'm going to go with the last Ronan and with Frank. Resilience was my word. I've got it written on the top of my sheet. After the first half, I had defence and gutsy. And in the second half, I had Sezer and Olam. But overall, I'll go with resilience. Gary Watson, good evening to you. What is your one word for that 1 point win over the Eels?
I think all those one words are extremely appropriate for what we saw today. But there was one that I really resonated with, because mine's next week. Today was a great performance. Last week was a great performance. But the one thing this club has not been able to do is to do that consistently. So for me, I'm going to celebrate today. I'm going to celebrate on this pod tonight. But for me, we've got to turn around and do it again next week. And then we have to turn around and do it the week after. And we have to turn around and do it the week after, because that's what this side has lacked for the last 12 years.
Next week, what about for you, Declan?
Interesting to hear Gary's perspective from the tough but fair coach after a good win. It's good to get reeled in a little bit. But yeah, I was going to go resilient, but then everyone stole that. So I think I'm going to have to change it to goal line defense, because Parramatta just seemed like they had so much ball, like really good ball in our red zone, but we just managed to keep pushing them away. And then towards the end, I know it sounds strange, but I actually felt quite comfortable when they were on our line, because we just seemed to have answers for everything they threw at us. And then they started making mistakes, and I think that gave us a lot of confidence, that the fact that they couldn't score on us.
Okay, all good. And Eddie, you've ditched the Raiders cap. I don't mean the Canberra Raiders. What are they? The Las Vegas Raiders now, I think, aren't they? And you've got the West Tigers cap on. And is it a 2024 cap? Yeah,
2024 member, Joel, which is wearing it very proudly tonight. Not that anyone can see it except you three guys. But that was an interesting take by Gary. It reminded me a bit of listening to Madge. It was very, very motivating to move on to next week. Madge was his favourite coach. But I'm going to go with unity. Joel, because that's what we've been craving as a club. We've been craving unity off the field, and I could have gone with Benji as my word because he is responsible for this unity, and it was on full display today. And, really proud. Even if they had gone down at the death, really proud of what they did today.
We, over the off-season, raised some questions, and especially during that pre-season around Benzi's coaching. One thing you can't deny after today is that he has motivated those players. He has those players playing as a team and playing as a group. And I think you have a look at the defensive structures. John Morris has definitely done a wonderful job defensively with them. But those guys are playing for each other. Even when we were short on one side of the field, they'd find a way to get the job done because they were there playing for each other's. And times where that game would have fell apart for us in the past, I think it was that belief and playing for the guy standing next to you that held them together. When we went down to 12 men, that was just one of the periods where, in the past, that side would have fallen away.
We'll circle back around to, and I agree with you, Gary, that the team from last year and the last few years would have capitulated after 20 minutes, and that's really, really pleasing. I just want to, I've got to say good evening to the Fox Sports experts that were on in the half an hour before the game. They were waxing lyrical about how amazing Parramatta are, how great they are, how we weren't in with a shot, this, that, and the other. And then I've got to say hello to Michael Ennis and his wonderful commentary. Every time a player makes a mistake, he says he'll be disappointed with that mistake. You reckon, Michael? Do you? Anyway, Fox Sports, sometimes their coverage, as it drives a lot of us a little bit crazy. But let's talk about something that's happening in more closer to the moment, and that is that Lachlan Galvin has been charged for that hip drop. Looks like 2 weeks if he doesn't fight it and 3 weeks if he does fight it. Declan, you obviously saw the incident. I don't think there was much intent in there, but looks like a couple of weeks for Lachlan Galvin.
Yeah, I think that it was a pretty clear example of a hip drop. Like he wraps his arms around it and he uses his weight on the lower half of I think it was Tuolagi's body to bring him down, which then puts pressure on Tuolagi's ankles and legs. So I think it's hard to argue. I wouldn't really be challenging that. It sucks because, it's such a great story and he's been playing so well for us. But I think if you look at it objectively, then I think 2 weeks is probably fair considering how other players have been charged for similar tackles.
Yeah, 100%. You can't challenge that one. He actually, when he wraps his arms around him, he actually takes his weight through his arms and then comes down on the back of his legs. And you just can't do it. So I think he's actually a little bit lucky to get away with 2 weeks. I think being a rookie and not having been to the judiciary before, I think that probably saves him a little bit, because it wouldn't have surprised me if he got a little bit worse than that, because it was a classic hip drop.
Eddie, he's going to miss if things stand and they take the guilty plea, the Dolphins and the Dragons. And definitely, it's a shame to see him go. But, I mean, there's a lot of hype around him. Maybe I'm absolutely putting my optimist hat on. A couple of weeks just takes that little bit of expectation away a little bit. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be in the long term. It might be for us this year, but for Lachlan Galvin's development, not the end of the world. And we've got to learn, we've got to play within those rules and be careful with those things.
Yeah, I'm still fearful, Joel, and we'll probably get to it, but, they didn't show much faith in Jaden Sullivan today. He didn't get on the field, so he's not my favourite player. I'm probably sure he'll get that opportunity in the next couple of weeks to redeem himself. I guess he didn't. Many players did from that showing in Canberra, got the chance to redeem themselves. But I just think this young kid's a superstar. I know I said it after 10 minutes of a trial game, but, man, without him on the field today, those 2 tries he set up, they just don't happen. The first one and the last one. I think he might have had a hand in the middle one to Olam as well. So, I'm really disappointed he's going to miss 2 weeks, but I can't argue it was a hip drop.
Yeah, he was outstanding again today outside of that hip drop. It's not just the tries he set up. I actually sat behind the goal line today, behind the goalpost, which I don't do too often. But his ability to switch sides, especially in the lead up to that first try, he was involved in multiple plays on either side of the ruck. And he's just so quick and gets into position so early for the next play. It's really impressive to see. It's been a long time since I've seen a guy be able to cover the meters he does on the field. He does a lot of work off the ball, getting himself in position for plays. These are massive things that are, once his game develops even more, the fact that he's got this work ethic, he gets himself into the right places on the field, his games are just going to continue to grow and grow. And I do agree it's not going to harm him in the long run to miss these 2 weeks. What it is, it's going to hurt us. And while I don't think it's going to harm him in the long run, I don't think playing the next 2 weeks, I don't think there's any pressure on the kid. You have a look at him out on the field, he doesn't really feel that pressure. He doesn't appear to anyway. He looks calm. He looks like he's got all the time in the world, and he looks extremely happy to be out there. So I don't think it relieves a little bit of pressure or a little bit of expectation from him, because I think he's handling that in his stride anyway.
Open this to the boys. Does he remind you of anyone? I've been trying to work it out the first few weeks, because there's a lot of talk that, because he is going to be a very big boy in a few years, Joel, but like a bit of the stuff he reminded me of Cameron Munster today. Like, I don't know if he will move into a lock or back row in 2 or 3 or 4 years, because I just think he's so natural and classy with the ball.
Yeah, I heard that on one of the podcasts I was listening to. They were comparing him to Munster, in that when Munster gets the ball, Munster's trying to score every time he gets the ball. And you kind of see that with Galvin. And yeah, like, he's young, and maybe that's just enthusiasm, and that'll wane a bit as he gets more experience. But he is sort of like that. But to me, I've heard Richardson say John Sutton, but I think he's more skillful than John Sutton. I'm thinking more like Michael Morgan, who was a really, really key player for the Cowboys when they were at their best. So we saw some really great juniors come through 20-odd years ago, and from what we're seeing from Galvin, it's just the amount of confidence that he has and the time that he seems to have on his side. I thought maybe when we made that break, he ended up running down that left-hand side, that we were going to bomb it, and he just executed it perfectly. He didn't rush it. It was just really, really pleasing to see. Declan?
Yeah, I think for a player comp, I think the one I've probably settled on, I think he's got like the frame of Adam Dewey, but then the footy head of Mitchell Moses. I think that's probably like the closest player comparison, because he's really tall and lanky, and he can run the ball up, and he's got that size where he can make meters. But then he's also kind of got the game awareness, doesn't he, where he can, like, you know, identify a mismatch, put in a really good grubber kick, and he's got that skill as well. And he's clearly got the confidence of Mitchell Moses. But I agree, it's like where do you play him? Because if he does go into that body, then you say the forwards, but how can you justify, moving him out right now? He's like one of the best players on the field. So it's going to be a really interesting one to see how he develops going forward.
He's also really strong defensively. He doesn't shirk any work defensively. Though to move into that lock role, his contact probably isn't strong enough in that role just yet, because he is still that lighter frame. And if you watch him in tackles, he's kind of grabbing and arm wrapping. So he lets them come into his chest, and then he's wrapping them and kind of slowing their momentum and looking for a little bit of help from others, which is fine for a young guy. But if you want to put him into that lock role where he's going to be in the middle of your defence a little bit more, I want someone who can actually use his shoulder a little bit more than he is at the moment. But as he grows into that frame, I think he can develop that. But I still think because of that kind of defensive technique that he uses, I think he's still a little bit away from being able to fill that lock role at an NRL level, because he's just not... The upper body strength, I don't think, is quite there to do that role at the moment. But his defence is fine out at 5'8". He does a really good job. It's just not a hit sort of tackling style he has. It's more the catch and slowly bring to ground.
Just staying with that, if obviously Galvin not there, Sullivan was mentioned, but you guys saw the State Cup game. Latu Fainu, again, another half game. Does he get his chance, do you think? Is that on the cards, Declan?
That's what I would be doing, because we've kind of seen, what Sullivan looks like there, and like as Eddie said, that there's a little bit of redemption there. I'm sure he can play better, but the thing about Latu Fainu is that he's probably even more talented than Lachlan Galvin. I think Lachlan Galvin, what sets him apart is he's got it between the ears, and he's like just has that pretty smart. Like Latu Fainu probably doesn't have that, but like he's probably more similar to Benji Marshall when he debuted. He's got that flair. He's a little bit more nuggety, but he's got that natural talent. And the only thing that holds me back from picking him is like he still seems to be on like a minutes restriction. So you would imagine that maybe the hamstring injury is not quite 100% healed yet. But I would definitely be considering debuting him because he's definitely someone who can come in and make a pretty big impact.
Yeah, for me, he hasn't played enough minutes. The fact that he only played part of the game today, I can't put him in next week, because if you put him in next week, it's to play 80, and he still hasn't played 80 minutes in reserve grade. So I think that's too big of a call for next week. It was interesting today when he actually went off and the other half went off in the reserve. Matai went off in the reserves as well. They moved the starting hooker, I can't remember his name, from the Magpies. They moved Brett and Aidan into the 5'8" role as well, which if you had told me before the game, I would have been criticising heavily. But he actually played quite well in that role. I don't think I'd be picking him in the NRL next week at 5'8", but that move of him into that role at 5'8" probably won the Magpies that game today. So it's an option that's there, but I think just with Fainu's limited amount of time and with Naden being Naden, I think you probably do have to go Bud Sullivan next week.
Surely then, Gary, Fainu would be perfect for the 14 role. Because, I mean, we saw what Bud Sullivan served up the first game. Not saying he's going to do that again, but if he's on minutes restriction and you want 25 minutes of impact.
Yeah, what you definitely could do is have Sullivan go on and start the game, and then have Fainu come on and probably play out the end of the second half or something like that. I'm still a little bit reluctant to do that. He hasn't got NRL experience yet. He hasn't got a lot of reserve grade experience yet. So it's a big call to put him into that role. But you have a look at what we did today, where we only played 15 men, then we're obviously scraping the barrel of what we consider our options in the reserve grade. So maybe he does come straight into calculations because of that.
I mean, Latu did play off the bench against Tonga. It was only one against England, for Tonga. So he's he hasn't played first grade yet, but he has had a little bit of experience playing that utility role in a test match. And I don't know, Appy's a great player, and you can't criticise him because of what he does in the field. But he missed that tackle on the I think it was Hopgood, which led to their try. And it's not a criticism of Appy. I think it's more should he be playing the full 80 minutes? Should we be trying to bring someone on so that he can have a little bit of a rest and then be efficient the whole time, like he did at Penrith? And I think there's some real opportunity for someone like Sullivan or someone like Finder to provide that, because I'm just not 100% happy that Appy's playing 80 minutes, and I'm not sure that can be sustained for the entire season.
And not just this entire season, Declan. We've got him for another couple of years after this year. So I don't want us burning out an asset that we've got for the next 3 years. We're playing him 80 minutes week in, week out when he's at the age he is. And the way he plays, I don't think that's good management of your roster. I don't think that's good management of your squad. So I really do think there needs to be someone coming on and playing that role as well. I agree 100% with you. There are times where he does start to make a couple of errors, because it's not just that he's playing 80 minutes, but he's trying so hard for that complete 80 minutes, Happy. And even when he's out on his feet, he's trying so hard that you're bound to fall off a tackle here and there. So I agree. I'd love to see Appy playing 60 minutes for his long-time benefit for our squad. It's really... we are starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel a little bit with reserves already, and whether Benji thinks we've got an adequate replacement there for him.
Eddie, I want to talk about Sezer shortly, but we've completely kind of missed something that I think that, if you look in the pre-game and you look at the way that the Eels lined up, they went for the power game, and our often unheralded forward pack stood up. Stefano played out of his skin. He actually fired up. He showed he had a heartbeat, which was fabulous. Clemmer was Clemmer, solid, but Pole was really, really good. I don't want to go through this pod without giving those guys the accolades that they stood up to one of the best forward packs in the game.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think they are unheralded, Joel. That's it. We put a lot of money into this forward pack, and they're delivering. I think Benji challenged them after that first game, wasn't good enough. Stefano's first stint was awesome today. I'm often critical of his first stint. His first 15 or 20 minutes, he was just toppling blokes, just running over the top of them. Now, we lost a bit of momentum because the unforced errors, and I didn't mind those offloads that went astray because I could see what they were trying to do. But like you said, forwards, I thought Dave Glemmer's second stint was really good. Ice and Bateman still in attack. I don't see as much as I'd like to, but defensively they're obviously leaders. And Pole very good with the ball. He tends to be one who stays on his doesn't get turned on his back, gets quick play the balls, which Appy can feed off. And don't forget the two forwards they used off the bench. I thought young Samuela Fainu, he is going to be an outstanding footballer.
Playing great football.
I've been blown away by him the last couple of weeks, and I got to be honest, I got swept up in the Latu Fainu hype, and I forgot about his brother. And I just think he's the prototype. If you're building a back rower for 2024, that's what you want. Someone with speed and footwork and potential offload. And yes, he looks like he's got a brain explosion or a dumb penalty in him, but he's got real talent. And Seyfarth had one brain explosion. I can't remember what it was. He did one really silly thing, but other than that, I thought he was good as well.
Yeah. Steph's game today, he's really showing that intent that's been missing. He is developing into that impact forward we've been talking about. Up until this year, I thought that while he does bump a guy off in that first contact, he's usually bumping that guy off and his momentum stopping. He's hitting that line that hard now. He's bumping the guy off and going over the top. And that's the big change in it for me. That's been massive the last 2 weeks for us. Today, he took it to another level. Like, his intensity getting the ball forward early in that game was nothing we've seen from a Tigers front rower in a long time. And if he continues that this season, then missing out on that rep train-on squad might not be an issue, because if he does play at that level week in, week out, then he's right in contention for an origin spot. But he has to continue it. Sam Fainu, I loved it when he came on and played in the middle today. I thought he was fantastic. The combination with him and Steph on the field I thought was working really well as well. So that's a little bit of a view to the future. I think the club does need to decide where they're going to play and whether it's going to be on that edge or it's going to be in the middle, because he can play both and he's doing really well at both. And I do have to give a shout out to Seyfarth today. I know I'm critical of him at times, but he was very good today. And it wasn't just the work. He was like, every time he's had a really strong game before, it's because he's been a bit of a workhorse. But he was ball playing today and doing quite a good job in that role. And that's something I doubted he had in him. If he can show that every week, he's got a spot on my bench constantly. There was even a really nice offload there somewhere today that he put on as well. So his game today was probably the best game I've seen from him, and he definitely deserves credit for that. So that forward pack all around, I thought Ice was quite strong, even with the ball in his hand. I think he's working very hard. So I think that entire forward pack today really earned their paychecks today. And though while we were scrappy and loose, it was obvious the plan was to go through Parramatta through the middle with those offloads, and they were pushing them early. And it caused a little bit of an issue. But boy, did they defend it, and boy, did they work hard to get that victory today, playing with 15 men.
And 38% possession, and a referee that, well, did his best to help the Eels at every opportunity. That was the feeling that I had. I found him quite frustrating, that referee. So I think it was definitely a memorable win from that perspective. Declan, we've got to talk about having a halfback that is a halfback, and I'm not turning this into a Luke Brooks bashathon, because Luke Brooks is not a halfback. Like, we are seeing now that for 10 years we have struggled and suffered from having someone like a Sezer who can take control of a game, tell the forwards where they need to be there to make the big plays. And for Sezer today, it was primarily, aside from the field goal, of course, it was his defence, which a lot of his highlights were just being there to make that right tackle. I mean, this is the difference in the team. Aside from there seems to be more spirit and there seems to be a little bit more this and a little bit more that, like, having a halfback is something that you can't go anywhere in the game if you haven't got someone like an Aidan Sezer.
Yeah, and especially that 10 minutes when Locke and Galvin was in the bin, you could tell that people like Sezer and Appy were really influential, and just we just need to survive this 10 minutes. Like, no matter what, we need to hold on here and make sure the Eels don't concede any points. And if we do that, we're still a chance of making a game of this. And that's exactly what they did. And as you said, his defence was amazing as well. He was right up in Eel's faces. And he's clearly a great communicator. He has lots of experience. The field goal, he didn't hit it sweetly. And I think Darcy Lussick actually got there, but it just kind of went to his right instead of going up. So it would have been really interesting if that was a charge down. But, he nailed it. And as you said, it's just really good to have a veteran who's a communicator out there, because especially even with that second Olam try, the little wraparound, I think that was like a little bit of classy play from Sezer and Sefer, which was obviously coached by Benji as well, but just the execution to do it on the fly at speed, I think kind of showed just how good he is at kind of managing the game.
And the ball on the end of that was a beautiful ball he threw out for Olam to cross in the corner. Long cut-out pass. I thought he controlled the game really well for the most part. Defensively, he was strong. He and Appy really drive our line speed. One thing he does need to work on, though, is that kicking game. The 2 kicks to the corner towards the end of the game, they were that bad they came close to costing us the game. The kick he kicked too deep that was caught on the full in goal and gave a 7-tackle set. We can't be making that mistake late in the game. We can't have our chief playmaker making that mistake late in the game. So that's an area that he really needs to have a look at. We got very lucky with the field goal as well, because Appy took the wrong option leading up to it. He really got caught out getting tackled on the 5th. We can't be setting ourselves up into a field goal position and have our hooker playing the ball. That's a big no-no. We need the best service through to Sezer so he can get that kick. And I think that probably contributed to the way he would kick a little bit, because I think it was Papali'i that ended up getting in there and passing that out to Sezer. They're the little things, those attention to detail things that Steve talks about all the time, that even in a win today had the potential to really cost us that game. So they're things we've really got to work on over the next few weeks.
I'm probably not. I know what you're saying, Gary, with those last 10 minutes. I'm probably not as critical of that. I know what the play you meant with Appy, but at least they were still, I think, right post, which is the perfect position for a left foot kicker. And maybe Appy got spooked by someone shot out of the line the play before. At least he didn't spin it 2 or 3 wider where they couldn't have kicked the field goal. So I think he sort of reined himself in there. They were still in a good spot to take the field goal. And yes, he didn't hit it perfect, but I said to my mate next to me, this is why we brought Sezer to the club. And I know he didn't execute that 7-tackle set, but he still had the right idea. Like, for me, there's a difference between experience and footy IQ, and he has real footy IQ. You listen to him, and you know he's just a footy head, like a Mitchell Pearce or guys like that in the past, even like Jared Mullen. They were footy heads. He understands. I saw an interview with him after the game, and he said, I was scratchy that last 10 minutes. I got that 7-tackle kick wrong. But the encouraging from me, which I never thought with Brooks, is he understands the game, the ebbs and flows of the games, when to slow it down. He got us through that 10-minute period. So I think Benji's it's a massive win for Benji so far, because he's not going to be a world beater, but he's exactly what we needed for a year or two season.
The big thing for me is, even though I am being slightly critical of those errors, he didn't go into his shell after them. He kept on playing, and that's the big thing that I take out of it. I'm not trying to be overcritical of him at all, because I thought he was really strong today and really contributed to that win, but that's just an area to have a look at.
I think as well with Sezer, you can see it's a little bit awkward. We have 2 left foot kickers. We don't really have a right foot kicker, and you could tell, like Sezer, he had to kind of step off, and it was a little bit awkward a few times, and I think that's probably why it led to the 7-tackle set. But just on Appy's decision to run the ball before, I actually thought that was the right decision, because although it took the dummy half out of it, we got a quick play the ball, and that's exactly what you need, because John Bateman got tackled, and it wasn't quick at all. So I'm more than happy for Appy to sacrifice his service to get that quick play the ball, because I think the Eels would have been a pretty good chance of charging it down if it went from Appy to Sezer. So I think that was a little bit of high IQ in its own, just to go to the right and then play the ball quickly, and then Sezer took it from there.
Well, the proof is it went over.
After the game, in the post-match press conference, Benji was asked about the performance, and he said, we didn't play the way we wanted to, especially in the first half. which I think is we would all agree with. I mean, it was a hold on, hang in there, not the most polished display. He also said we need to be better again. I think probably the one thing that stands out to me, we've spoken a little bit about this, Gary, is for 60 minutes almost, pretty much, we struggled to create an overlap. We struggled to isolate the Parramatta guys in defence. I mean, that seems to me as a potential area of improvement. It wasn't our most polished attacking performance, but you could that they hung in there. Like, they're the kind of games that the good teams win.
The big thing I take out of today is we got to win through intensity, effort, and the team playing together. The execution wasn't great today. We're still, when we run those block plays, which we are running block plays now, but we're not straightening the attack at all. So they are still going far too much across field. There's a couple of examples of it today. They're standing very deep, but they're not straightening it, and they're running guys out of room. They ran Staines out of room, Tupu in the second half out of room on a really poor one, where everyone just ran on a 45-degree angle towards the sideline, and he got the ball with a little bit of space. But once you're doing that, the defence just keeps sliding in front of you. You've got to hold that defence up, and we're not doing enough to hold that defence up. But the thing is, in that St. George games, we weren't running shape. We weren't running block plays. We weren't doing any of that. Over the past couple of weeks, we're at least just trying to run those plays. Once we can start straightening them a little bit, and a lot of that has to come onto Buller, I think. The way he slides around the back, he's really got to straighten up when he comes onto the ball, and he's not doing that at the moment. If he doesn't start straightening, he's going to keep running his outside man out of space. And I think that's the biggest flaw in his game at the moment, is he's not providing the space to the players outside him. I think I said last week he tends to take the space for himself, and he has to straighten and provide that space for the players outside him. Once he does that, he'll be a much better fullback, and he'll be a much more attacking weapon, both with his passing and his running game. But he's definitely got to start straightening that attack.
Eddie, going from the micro to the macro, you see it every year in the NRL where a team comes along that's maybe not the best team, but they manage to keep ticking the wins over. Maybe they don't win every week, but they win more than their fair share, but they get better as the season gets on. I think that's what I like about this team, is that you kind of got to be gritty and you've got to be determined. You've got to back each other and be connected. Jag the wins, get a few, get a little bit of luck here and there, and then you can go on a bit of a run. I see this team, if the injury gods, touch wood, are kind, maybe getting better as the year goes on.
I hope so, Joel. And every team, no matter where you finish on the ladder, I can't remember, it might have been a coach that said this. He said, and obviously it hasn't been the case with us, but he said most teams have 8 games they win fairly easily, 8 games they lose easily, and 8 games are decided by 6 points or less, and you've got to win more than you lose. Mm-hmm. And we have been horrendous in Golden Point and in clutch situations and in games that are in the balance. So that last 10 minutes, that's a game that you look back on in a few weeks and you just need it because you can't get it back. It's against the Parramatta side that is a really strong side. I know they're missing Moses and they badly missed him today, but it's still a strong side, probably a stronger side on paper than us. Most people tipping them to win the game. So, and it also the knock-on effect of confidence, what it gives, that's the intangibles that you can't measure. What that just going to training tomorrow as a happy team that's won 2 in a row, the lift that gives the players rather than walking away, would have been horrendous if Clint Gutherson kicked that goal after the sideline. I would have found it hard to come on tonight because I'm so heartbroken. And I've still got my rant coming, Joel. I'm waiting for my opportunity. I've got one rant, and it would have been thank God for you guys that it wasn't in the chat because it would have been going for a lot of hours if we did lose it.
So do you want to go in cold with this rant, or do you want me to ask you a specific question?
No, I'm just going to fire away. So I'm assuming, because I didn't hear the commentary, but I'm assuming, Gary, because you know everything, so I'll ask you. I'm assuming that penalty at the end was for offside, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, so you remember 2 years ago, I went on a shocking rant after we lost to the Cowboys. Everyone was feeling sorry for us, and I said, no, that was a ridiculous play by us to even attempt or shadow a block, even if it wasn't a block. Do not give them an opportunity. So we kicked the field goal with 30 seconds to go. We're all celebrating, and I said to my mate, I hope they are concentrating off this kickoff there's two ways you can lose this game. One way is if you run a block or even look at a guy and he falls over like Kyle felt. The other way is if you go up on a one-on-one and some fool decides to pick the ball up in front of him. I'm sorry, but I'd be so angry in the sheds afterwards, even though we got away with it. But Papali'i, for him to pick up that ball, I don't give him any excuse for that. They should know, because if we lost that game, everyone would have said, Rob, Justice. I'm just saying I was so angry at that, and we got away with it. And you guys will look at me like I'm mad, but I just thought that was really, really silly to do that. We gave them the one opportunity. Even if you stand on your head, like I said last year, Gary, stand with your hands on your head, let Parramatta catch the ball. And then they've got 20 seconds to kick a 40, 38-metre field goal to send the golden point. The odds of that happening are very unlikely. The only way you can lose that game is if you give a silly penalty away of the kickoff, and we did it again. So please, Tigers, never do that again. Thank you, John.
I can't disagree with you at all, Eddie. I think I would have actually liked to see in that situation Buller bat the ball backwards. Like, I think that's a better option than trying to take that catch. I know it risks a Parramatta player coming through, but you have to be training these things at training. We mess them up far too often. We can't be practicing that sort of stuff at training. Like, it just happens every time. Like, when we got that field goal, everyone around me, because I was at the ground, everyone around me jumping up and down. I wasn't jumping up and down because I knew what was coming. I knew we would mess that up because it happens so often to us. We need to work out what we're going to do in those situations, and we need to practice it, because it happens far too often, and it's Steve's little thing about attention to details again. There's no way, and Ice picking up that ball, you can't do it. You've got to have better game awareness and better game knowledge in that situation. I know it's a heat-of-the-moment thing, but it happens too often at our club. I'm not going to go as far back as saying that the one at the Cowboys, I'm going to agree with you, but I will agree with you today, Eddie.
Thank you, Gary.
I actually thought that it should have been a penalty to us, because I thought Billa was interfered with by Morgan Harper. So, I suppose you can just look at it that way as well. But yeah, he made contact with him in the air, so it'd be interesting if that happened. If we did that, I'd be really interested to see what the ref would have said. But yeah, I thought that was the correct call, but obviously I shouldn't have picked up the ball.
Look, the thing is, I do agree. I think he was interfered with before he caught the ball. We've got to take these things out of the referee's hands. I'm not someone who likes to sit here after a game, win or lose, where I sit here and blame the referee. No matter what happens in a game, there's things, if we've lost the game, we've got to look at, and even games where we've won, there's things we've got to look at that we can do better. And that final 1 minute after we got the field goal, that's something we've got to do better. And it's something that's happening too often. So it's something we've really severely got to have a look at, because it's been happening for years and it's not getting any better at any point.
Something else, a couple of other things that come to mind that are in that same vein, not contesting the ball with 5 to go. The Eels put up the bomb and we made a complete meal of that. And Fatape gave away the penalty there, which got it back to 16 all. And also a shout out to John Bateman for your contractual obligation of giving away one stupid penalty per game.
And was he the one that kicked from dummy half at some point as well? Was that Bateman?
No, that was Safar.
Was it
Was that Safar?
No. That was a brain.
Was that the brain? That was the brain explosion.
I couldn't remember, but I was thinking of you, Gary, thinking you were going to be furious. That was Safar.
To be fair to Safar, though, Apu was late to the play, so I think he just kind of did it. Not like I think he just kind of panicked. So I can kind of understand what went through his head, because it's better to be decisive than not decisive in those situations.
Declan, that's no, because the next set, what happened is the Parramatta back rower did exactly the same stupid thing to Luggy. He took the ball in the fifth, but he at least had the brain not to kick it and not give a 7 tackle set away. He just took the tackle 5 metres out, which these days is not the end of the world. What Safaf did was the end of the world.
Luckily, it wasn't, because we did still win, Eddie.
Yeah,
the world didn't really end.
Having a look at the backs. Staines was solid. Once again, not too many attacking opportunities, but I thought he did a really good job on Micah Sevo. But I've got to obviously shout out to Justin Olam. I mean, that was big. And
amazing.
And what was big about it was that you could tell the Eels were tentative every time they spread the ball that way. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted from him, and a couple of tries. Really, really, really great game from Justin Olam. For Tape, though, defensively struggled a little bit in that first half. And do we start talking Naden going into that spot? Do you think Gary's shaking your head? Yes. Experience. Yep. Yes. Speaking about brain snaps, we need something from Naden.
I thought Naden was a bit hot and cold, which he usually is in the reserve grade game today. But I think he really stood up at the end of that game and showed his worth. So I probably put him into that role. I think I like him as a centre. I want him to get his head screwed on right, but I like him as a centre. He's got to play smarter football. I do want to say on Charlie Staines, that defensive effort on Sevo today was fantastic. The amount of times, it wasn't just a good performance. He was bringing him down one-on-one constantly. Sevo did pick up an injury in the first half. I think he may have been carrying a little bit of a calf injury. But Charlie Staines today, and while he's still not getting assets off to the greatest starts, I can't fault his energy and his attempt to actually get them started on the right foot. It's very good to have Olam out there helping in that regard. And he does need to get better, but that defensive effort today was first class from a winger.
I thought a lot of the wingers, we've said they've been poor. I thought Junior Tupou was really strong. Really I know he did contest a bomb, but he ran the ball with real conviction today, which I probably haven't seen since the last Easter game against Parramatta. He had a similar game last year at Homebush where he was just taking them on like a front rower and skittling guys, and he would have made a clean line break with, I think, 3 minutes to go, but he went down with cramp when he was half through the line. That potentially could have won the game.
What poor timing. He would have went through that gap if that cramp didn't bite.
Yeah. And Olam, I mean, Joel, you've got to take the credit here. I was pretty quizzical and critical, both, of Olam's signing. You liked it at the time, and I was sort of going, well, Melbourne let him go. He can't get in, Melbourne centres. They got no stars there, and he can't get a game. But what I love about him at the moment is there's consequences if you run his way. If I'm opposing him at centre, there's consequences if you're a ball player and you get it wrong. Because even one time, I think he might have given the penalty away, or Bateman, he shot through like a cannon. Okay, it didn't come off. But if I'm up against him, I'm just going, oh, man, I don't want a bar of this. And he scored 2 tries in 2 games. His defence doesn't always get it right, but there's consequences for the opposition. And I think that's an important point for our backline. And the other thing I really agree with Gary, I made a note during the game, Charlie Staines didn't make every tackle on Sevo, but they seem to be our edges on its early days, Gary, but they seem to be a bit more connected. And I think John Morris at the moment has got to have some credit, because I know defence is a lot about effort, but it's also about system and guys being on the same page. And Staines looked to be on the same page when he shot in most of the time.
Yeah, he's shooting in really, really well. There's a couple of times, I can't remember if it was him or Tupu who shot in and didn't quite make the tackle. We do have to get better at that. If you do come in, you've got to clean them up, because it does leave that overlap. I think one of Parramatta's tries was a guy shooting in and not completing the tackle. So we've got to be careful of that. But I think the most pleasing part for me are our outside backs are making decisions together. In the past, we've had one guy sticking to his man and another guy coming in on the same man. That's where you get into trouble. There hasn't been near as much of that this season. Seeing a guy come in and have 2 men hit the same guy and the winger being free, that's changed immensely. The only time our wingers are really coming in now is when the centre's caught out. Where if the centre's gone in or the centre's been caught out of position, they're coming in and shutting it down. That's a big improvement on what we've seen in the past. And those structures are a lot better than I think I've seen from a West Tigers side since probably 2010. So it's credit to John Morris so far.
Yeah, and he did get a call out from Benji in the press conference, which was really good to see. So, yeah, a much deserved. I mean, Declan, I'll throw it your way because after the Canberra game, I listened to you guys. I was overseas, but I listened to the pod and you were saying, we needed the more senior guys to step up, and they really, really have. And I was looking at the team lineup and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm an Eels fan, I know we've won the last 2 spoons, but I'm thinking to myself, we've got to beat Olam. We've got to beat Sezer. We've got to beat Papali. We've got to beat, there's some good players in that team, which is really, really good to see them standing up and taking off the pressure off the youngsters. And Galvin might be a little bit different. He's sort of taking that on himself. But I think that's the most pleasing thing for me is if these experienced guys can continue up with that, it's going to help our development so much when we're bringing in one youngster at a time rather than 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about last year that a lot of the forwards in particular that we brought in, so like Clemmer, Bateman, Papley, they were actually playing quite well within their roles, but it just wasn't amounting to wins. And slowly but surely, we've kind of increased the quality of the roster, and now we're starting to get to the outside backs with all of them. But yeah, it's just because young players are always going to, someone like Galvin is going to give you like a 10 out of 10 sometimes, but then he might give you a 5 or a 4. But you need those veteran players to play consistently well every single week. And I think especially to Cezer's credit and all of them, they've just played, besides the Canberra game, Sezer did only play 20 minutes, and all of them didn't play that. But I feel like all the veterans ever since then have really stood up and really been consistent. And then especially Stefano, I know that he's still young, but I think he's kind of going into that, veteran experience leadership role where he is playing really consistently. And I think that first stint was probably the best I've seen from him. Obviously against his former club, so it meant a lot. You could see in that. So hopefully he plays like that the entire year. And, if he gets selected for Origin, that's great because that means he doesn't get to opt out of his contract. So it's a win-win. But yeah, and I think what you said as well about the young players, and now we have a little good mixture of sprinkling of Samuel Afanu, Lawson Galvin, but we don't have to go completely overboard where we can still rely on some solid veterans.
By the sound of it, Naden maybe has probably played himself back into first grade. We're going to have one force change for the Dolphins. The Dolphins got the win as well. Gary, it's going to be a test for Benji. Every week is a test for him. He hasn't been necessarily in this position before. I mean, do you bring a Naden back in? Do you reading his mind? I know it's hard to change a winning team, if you know what I'm saying. But if a guy or guys are pressing through, you've kind of got to make that call too.
I think Benji probably keeps Fatape there. The big thing for me over the next couple of weeks is a real opportunities open up for the Tigers. We have the Dolphins next week that we then follow with the Dragons down in Campbelltown. So there's a little bit of a window there, and I don't want the team looking too far ahead. But us here, we can have a little bit of a look at that. They're 2 very winnable games, and if we're starting to get to 3-4 wins in a row at the start of this season, things start to improve greatly, and maybe Steve's prediction of top 8 doesn't look so far out there. So Benji has a really big challenge now. The really big challenge now is over the last 2 weeks, we've gone out there and we've won 2 games that we weren't expected to win. That's very West Tigers. It's something we've done over the past 10 years consistently. I think next week is a game we should win. So we've got to go out there next week and play to that same level again. And that's where we've fallen down in the past. So that's what's big about the next couple of weeks for me. I don't really mind if he goes Naden or Fatape, but getting this side playing really strong football is what we need to see week in, week out.
I think you'll stick with Fatape because I think trust is one thing with Benji. That's one thing that he spoke about in the preseason. I was sceptical because he kept talking about standards and preseason was really hard, and we'd heard all that fluff before, but it's in evidence on the field at the moment. I don't know if Naden has earned his trust. Yes, he did some good things today in reserve grade, but I've seen that from Naden before. He's also let us down badly a couple of times with send-offs and sin binnings and whatnot. So I don't know. I just think, Joel, when do they play on Saturday night? They'll be travelling up to Sunshine Coast or wherever. Make sure, I think, he books around the Galvin Saturday morning because that seems to be working, Joel. No, seriously. I mean, apparently he did it again today. And I was watching these clowns on 360 again, and they could hardly hide their disdain that we won again. I mean, Paul Kent, you can imagine. Buzz was on there saying, "Oh, he played golf." Yeah, so I think we needed, and I was very critical of Benji and very how can it work? He's never coached before, but I think the early signs are really good. And I'm not saying we're going to make top 8 or anything, but just in terms of, I think he gets man management. I think we needed something really different because we've had Madge and we've had Sheens and we've had guys that drive hard standards and tell you what you're not good at and watch video and blah, blah, blah. And at the moment, I said it last week, the team looks really happy, and they looked happy last year losing. I wasn't happy about that, but it wasn't an implosion like the Bulldogs or Dragons where there's ructions in the camp. So, Benji, keep playing your golf on game day. No problem.
Handicap of 3, apparently, which is pretty amazing.
Yep. Decent.
I do want to mention one more thing about Naden before we move off on it. I think at the moment, that last 10 minutes in that reserve grade game, he played very frantic, I thought. So that's something he's got to get under control. And I think that last try that he set up in that game really sums him up. He put up a real dog of a kick, a bomb that really went nowhere. We got a lucky bounce that our second rower picked up and got the ball to him down the edge. He then picked a really nice kick back infield to set up the try. That's Naden in a nutshell for me. He can do some really good things, but he does some really poor play as well. But I think the thing with Benji, going back to that one as well, is I think he's got that manner that the younger players, the younger generation really responds to. The people of Declan's generation probably really respond to more than people of my generation would have. And I think that's working really well for him. And I think those players, those younger players, it obviously resonates with them because you can see it out on the field.
I'll just say, one thing with that, though, that surprised me, Declan, is that, you pan to the box and you could see Robbie Farah could never be a first-grade coach because he's emotional, he's up and he's down, and he's, even Benji mentioned in the press conference, he said Robbie was, on death's door when Parramatta got awarded that penalty. And Benji actually said to John Morris in the box, he said, calm down, whatever will be, will be. And that's pretty, I know in his emotions inside would have been going, but that's pretty rare for a guy 3 games. I watched Aaron Payne and he was like a cat on a hot tin roof in the reserve grade, up and down, ranting on the microphone, and well done to him because he's just got his first win for the Magpies. But I do worry about those coaches that live and breathe every second of the day because obviously you look at a Craig Bellamy and he does it, but he's Craig Bellamy, and I hate coaches that come in. I remember when Steve Kearney came in to coach years ago as a rookie and they said he just tried to be Craig Bellamy. The one thing I admire about Benji is he's not trying to be anyone else. He's just saying, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to fail my way. I'm going to succeed my way. Declan.
Yeah, I think he also said that no matter what, he was going to be proud of the boys, and I think that's something that people, as you say, my generation really get behind. We will do anything possible to reward people that put faith in us, and I think Benji Marshall is really good at that. And even Lachlan Galvin said after the game, Benji's been really great for me. I just want to go out there and play for him, and I think that's just speaks volumes about the kind of coach he has for these younger guys. But, obviously, we're going to have our trials and tribulations this season, but some really good signs so far from Benji as a coach.
Declan's just had the realisation that if he's on this pod for another 20 years, he's still going to be considered, the spring chicken.
Yeah, he'll still be the kid.
Yeah, exactly. In the post-match, Benji was asked a typical journalist question. You're up against your brother this week. You're up against Wayne Bennett. Is it going to be emotional for you? He said, no, it's not emotional. It's just another game. And I really, truly believe that. But what I like about Benji's approach is they kept wanting to drag him in on how does it compare to last year and what's it like compared. And he said, oh, no, that was last year. I'm not worried about that, which is really good because when you've been on the path that we've been on, a fresh start was really, really needed. And he keeps harping on about that let's not worry about what happened last year. And it feels fresh. The team feels a lot fresher than it did last year. Last year felt like they were carrying a lot of baggage around. And, bringing in the Caesars, bringing in the Oldhams, bringing in guys that have got a very different history and haven't been through our history is starting to pay off a bit as well. Gary?
It's almost like it's an opposite version of what he was on the field. He was a very frantic and explosive and off the top type of player on the field. as a coach, when you listen to him speak, he's very thoughtful. He's very considered in what he says. He's very calm and non-emotional. And it kind of really juxtaposed to what he was on the field. And that, for me, has been something I didn't really expect to see from him. And it's good to see.
I probably didn't either, Gary, but I think he's also willing to take a risk that maybe a lot of senior coaches wouldn't with Galvin. Like I don't think he does give him many instructions, whereas, if he played under Des Hasler or Michael Maguire, they might be telling him, these are your two plays, don't go outside of that, blah, blah, blah. And I actually think it's for a kid that's come in, and obviously Galvin needs to take most of the credit himself for the way he carries himself and perform, but I think that's a risky approach, or many people from the outside would see that as a risky approach, but I'd be very surprised how many coaches would have debuted this kid this early.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think we've all heard the reports that Benji's told Galvin to just play what you see, and that's a young guy. I actually heard a story today where at training he made some mistake where he probably got a little bit too excited and overplayed his hand a little bit, and Robbie had a little bit of a crack at him. And apparently Benji came up to him and said, no, I want you to keep doing that. I want you to play what you see. And I just think that fills in with the confidence that if he does make a mistake, that the support's going to be there. And I think that's the difference to what we've seen at this club in the past, is that, yeah, we want you to do this, but if you do make a mistake, the support's there. I think we saw a lot of young players who came into first grade young in the past, who, when they made those mistakes, got chewed out for it a little bit. That then causes them to go back into their shell, and that's not something we want with a guy like Lockie Galvin.
Just looking, Eddie, I'll throw to you with this one. Just the state of the union sort of look at the game in itself. Like, it seems to me like you've got a couple of teams up there that are leading the pack, but there doesn't seem to be a huge variation between the top and the bottom. If you look at it, maybe you might describe the Titans and the Bulldogs, or they're probably the strugglers at the moment. But realistically, there's a lot of teams that they could beat on their day. So it seems to be a very sort of two-speed competition. There's those couple of really good teams, and then there's the rest of us.
No, I'd probably agree with that. I'd say it's just good to be part of that group of teams. Last year it was pretty much us and a couple of others. I'd say Penrith and Brisbane are clearly still the two best teams. I know Brisbane have had guys out. I was actually at that Penrith Roosters game, and it's so simple what they do, Penrith, but they're just so ruthless at it, and they just bullied the Roosters. But I would say the bottom of the competition, I think, has got better, and some of the teams in the middle, I think, have regressed a little bit. Teams like Newcastle, I don't think Cronulla's going to be that good, but they're all gritty. So, like you said, a team like the Bulldogs, they've only won one game, but they've been in every game. I'd say the only team that looks really disappointing at the moment is Gold Coast.
The thing for me is I think there's a lot of teams that are very up and down at the moment. You look at teams like St. George, they've had a couple of good games, a couple of poor games. Cronulla, I think Cronulla and Canberra game last night was a really strong example of where a lot of the teams in the comp are. Canberra got out to an 18-0 lead, and then Cronulla just went straight over the top of them. So for me, that's a little bit of a small example of how the comp looks at the moment. I don't think, and it's probably pretty typical of an early season comp, with a lot of these mid to lower sides, you don't really know what side's going to show up at the moment. So hopefully we can stay consistent, because I think consistency over the first month and a half of the comp is really important.
It's very early, Joel. It's 3 games, but I said in pre-season I thought we'd run last. But I've got to say, from what I've seen, I'd be disappointed to run last now. I'd be disappointed. I still don't. I think it's a long, long way away to even think about making a top 8. But I think this team should be looking to at least double their wins from last year. Some people might think we should be aiming for top 8 like Steve. He was bullish, and he's looking right so far because of the way they're playing.
Had a big smile on his face this afternoon, mate.
I know, and he deserves to have one. But I just think at the moment I'd be horrified to think in 5 or 6 months, it's such a long season, that we'd be below a team like the Gold Coast anyway.
Yeah, it's the injuries are what concerns me. It's the lack of depth that's the worry. If we have luck in terms of injuries, then I'm not so worried. And I guess the bigger question there is, and it's not the right time to be asking this question, but, you know, what is your marker for the Tigers having turned it around or changed, if that makes sense? Like we've been so sucky for so long. You know, what do you need to see? And maybe that's something to think about or discuss on the Eddie Otto midweek pod is, you know, what does it look like to see and be able to label the Tigers as turning the corner, let's say?
I think Eddie did say at some point doubling our wins would be extremely successful.
Yep.
I did say that, Gary, but yeah, I know if they keep winning, I might have to change my mind. Like
we could do that by round 10. That's the beauty of it.
I know. I don't want to get sucked in. These two games coming up, I'm a bit like Gary. They concern me. We won't be favourites to beat the Dolphins because they're top of the table. I think they're a really good footy side. I think I didn't have them in my 8 at the start of the year, but I think they'll be close to the 8. And then Dragons, I mean, who knows? Like you said, Dragons come out and blow away Manly and looked absolutely horrendous in the 2 games before that. So we obviously played them in Tamworth and got spanked. So I think we're at the point now, Joel, a good season would be this sort of effort all year. And that sort of effort today, it probably wouldn't have beaten some teams. You're probably not going to beat Penrith or Brisbane or certain teams with that effort today. But that's got to be the benchmark. And if you can, concede, say, 19, 18, 20 points a game for the season, that would be a huge improvement because we've been closer to 30 the last 3 years. So they're the sort of benchmarks where you can actually find a bit more consistency, even if you're not getting the wins every week.
It's a combination of effort and execution. That's the key to it, isn't it? If you look at the good teams, they go through a season and 5 wins are just from resilience and being gutsy and hanging in there, and the rest of their wins are from their really good execution. So,
well, I mean, Joel, everyone's playing for second anyway, aren't they? Because, I mean, who's going to beat Penrith? They are just, they're unbelievable. And I hate Ivan Cleary, and I don't like Penrith, but Gary's looking like he's getting depressed now. But seriously, like, everyone's playing for second. So, I mean,
it's good. There's no pressure.
As far as I'm concerned.
You win 3 comps in a row, and you're the favourites until someone else proves otherwise. And at the moment, the only side proving that they should be favourites is Penrith.
All right. Well, we've won 2 in a row. It's not 2 competitions, unfortunately, but it's 2 games, and sometimes that feels like winning 2 competitions in a row. If we could go back in the time tunnel.
3-peat next week, mate. 3-peat.
Yeah, 3-peat. We're on the 3-peat.
The last time we won 3 in a row. It's probably not for 3 or 4 years.
Long time. Can't remember. I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
Ask Yachty, he'll know.
Yachty will know. Yep, he'll say round 16, 17, 18, 20, 19. And here were the scores. He's a freak. All right, and Yachty will have his quiz for the Eddie Otto midweek show that'll happen on Wednesday, I'd presume.
I hope so, Declan.
Or Thursday.
Well, I was going to say.
Friday. Or Saturday.
I was going to say, Declan.
Sunday.
Gary, listen, this is important. Me and you, Declan, both on Friday night on the midweek show, which was bumped back for Gary's and Steve's podcast. But anyway, we both predicted we would win, and maybe, we should keep that combination going, Declan, because I actually predicted a win in Golden Point. So I was wrong, but I mean, I did get it pretty right. It was 1 point.
I was wrong, but I was right.
I was wrong, but I was right. It was Golden Point, and instead it was 20 seconds to go. So I was wrong. So I apologize for that, Declan, but I think, our little combination might have played a role in that win today.
I only appear on the weekend ones where the penalty rate applies. So yeah, definitely.
I agree, Eddie. I think you've got to listen to these omens. And you've got to plan it accordingly. So I think you might be right here. I think we might be onto something. And Gary wasn't there as well. So I think that obviously played its part. So
let's not change a winning combination. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys.